Welcome to Module 5, entitled The Visual Elements, and we will focus on the color. So color is the visual element that has the strongest effect on our emotions. It is the element we use to create a mood or atmosphere of an artwork. So there are many different approaches to use of color in art, like color as light, color as tone, color as pattern, color as form, color as symbol, color as movement, color as harmony, color as contrast, and then lastly, color as mood. So my selection of artworks in the other slides is illustrated below had been chosen because they all use color in inspirational manner. So I have analyzed each of these to demonstrate how great artists use this visual element as a creative force in their work. So first, we will discuss about the color as light. Color is the sensation that is stimulated in our brain by different wavelengths of light. One wavelength will be stimulate our perception of red, another is orange, another yellow, and so on through all the colors of the spectrum. So the street light, this one by Giacomo Baglia, is a poetic impression that represents the physical properties of light. As its center, the bulb burns with a white heat in the darkness of the night. Its radiant glow dissolves in concentric waves, each of which diminish in the intensity and change color to suggest the different wavelengths of the spectrum. So Bala was an Italian futurist who revered the modernity of urban life. So he painted this one, the street light, at the time when electric lighting was first introduced to the streets of Rome. So it is the futurist celebration of the power of technology as the symbol of the new age. Next, color as tone. Dramatic color combined with a vigorous painting technique are the key elements of expressionism, just like we have discussed in the previous module in the art. So expressionist painting was more about using color and physical qualities of a medium to express your feelings about the subject rather than simply describing it in a naturalistic fashion. So the Lake Lucerne, this painting by Emile Knoll, is a classic example of an expressionist painting technique. It is painted more from memory than from observation, using the natural fluidity of watercolor to mirror the changing mood of the landscape. First, Knoll soaked his paper, this one, the paper that he used in painting. He soaked it, in this case vellum, with water. He then built up the shape of the mountains, this one, mountains, with washes in different tones of color blue, more intense in the foreground, becoming paler in the background. So this creates an impression of aerial perspective, as the tone of the colors appear to fade into the distant landscape. He continues using what we call wet on wet technique to form the empirical layers of clouds, this one, and the watery reflection in the lake. So there's a clouds here and we have a reflection in the lake. Finally, he applies a spot of yellow, which blends over the damp surface to create the glow of the setting sun, which he then repeats on the lake. This yellow, this is the sun, and with a reflection in the lake to create its reflection. Alright, so number 3, color as pattern. In Cubism, the artist selects the essential features from multiple viewpoints of the subject and reconstruct them as an abstract composition. So at the drawing stage of the Cubist painting, The artist was often confronted with a confusing structure of lines and shapes to which he or she would apply patterns of color, tone, and texture in an attempt to organize the spatial arrangement of the composition. So in Violin and Checkerboard by Juan Gris, the artist assigns different colors to particular shapes, which create an asymmetrical pattern of forms arranged around the white cloth. So this is the white cloth at the center of the painting. So this pattern of colors leads the viewer's eye in a clockwise motion. Clockwise. Okay, this is a clockwise motion around the picture. Color distributed as a regular pattern is often used as a unifying element in the composition of artworks. Number 4. Color as form. To create the illusion of form in a painting, artists traditionally added lighter and darker pigments to the main color of an object in order to render the naturalistic effects of light and shade. So the main disadvantage of this technique was that much of the intensity of the original color was sacrificed when it was blended with highlights and shadows. So the Impressionists had introduced a more scientific approach to the analysis of color to try to solve this problem, while some of the post-impressionists had begun to use color structurally. So one group of artists who were bored with all the various naturalistic, structural, and symbolic approaches to using color in painting were les fauves. They call it les fauves. They simply wanted to use color to speak to the spirit, celebrating its vitality and feel-good factor. Number 5. Color as harmony. Harmony is the compatibility, balance, or progression of similar elements, like this painting, Blue Dancers, by Edgar Doga. It is carefully composed pastel painting that illustrates the harmony of color as well as several other visual elements. So the shape of the painting is square. Okay, the shape of the painting is square, while the rotational movement of the figure is composed with a diamond. Again, the rotational composed with the dancer is diamond, forming a harmony of rectangular shape, just like this one. Okay, again, the shape of the painting is square, while the rotational movement of the figures is composed with a diamond. So the purpose of this is the decorative frills around the bodices of the dresses form a subtle harmony of curves. So the pointed projection of arms, the arms of these dancers, elbows and wrists create a rhythmic harmony of angels. Number 6. Color as contrast. Few painters in the history of arts captured the intensity of light and energy more than Joseph Mallord William Toner. Okay. In this first of two versions of the burning of the Houses of Lords and Commons in 1835, the visual elements of the painting are fueled by a collision of the classical elements of earth, air, fire, and water. So Turner personally witnessed this event from among the thousands of people who lined the south bank of the river Thames, as well as from a boat that he hired to get closer to the scene. So, he created a series of quick watercolor sketches of the fire, but there is some dispute that they were painted at the location. So the composition of the work is divided into 4 sections. each of which harbors one of the four classical elements, just like this one. On the left, the blazing oranges and yellow of the burning buildings are set in opposition to the cold blues and lilacs of the sky. So the hot colors of the flames, this one, hot colors of the flames, and the reflections, which is the fire and the water will be the reflections, are intensified by the cold colors of the sky and the bridge, the earth, and the air. The similar tension is established by the tonal contrast of the dark cloud against the light river, which is counterbalanced by the light sandstone of Westminster Bridge against the darkening sky. So this painting is a cleverly arranged contrast of opposite colors, tones, and classical elements, which Turner has devised to heighten the impact of each. Number 7. Color as movement. When you look at the abstract artwork, your brain instinctively searches for signs of rhythm in order to try to make spatial sense of the image. Like the vector, Vasarely makes use of this impulse to create an impression of movement by combining graduated squares and sequential colors. This led the eye into through the image with increasing and decreasing accelerations. So the squares, which graduate from large to small, are aligned on their horizontal axis, but are staggered on their vertical axis to create the illusion of a tunnel whose dizzying perspective unfolds as they travel towards the vanishing point at its center. And then last is number 8, color as symbol. The Potato Eaters by Vincent van Gogh is his masterpiece from the first period of his work before he moved to Paris in 1986. It portrays a poor Dutch peasant family sitting down to share their frugal evening meal. They are agricultural laborers, and the earthy greens and browns that Van Gogh uses to paint them symbolize their closeness to and dependence on the land for their survival. So there is a unity of color and texture between the hands and faces of the peasants and the potatoes and coffee they are sharing. So the dark somber tones of the work sympathetically reflect their humble existence and the artist's respect for the quiet dignity of their labor. So these are the visual elements of color with the 8 kinds. I hope that you have learned from this module 5, and please don't forget to answer the evaluation quiz.